I talk to a lot of people all the time about the wealth management business and making wealth management a career, and they can be in different industries. So today I thought we would bring Dan Nolan onto the show, and Dan has literally done it all. He's done the full gamut in the wealth management business, and he is now dedicated to helping young advisors get into the business and build up their career. Hi, I'm Chris Reynolds, and I'm on a mission to help independent financial advisors build a better business through a remarkable client experience. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to do that from my conversations with the visionaries, the leaders, the independent advisors who are reshaping the future of the financial advice industry. At the end of each episode, you're going to walk away with an actionable idea that you can take and use right now, and it will help you to build a better business today. This is Turning the Page. You know, one of the things that I love the most about my role is watching fellow entrepreneurs build great businesses. And they build those businesses within our organization, which it's exciting to see. It changes their lives and it changes the lives of their clients. You know, and one of those real success stories is Dan Nolan. You know, I've known Dan now for over 20 years. He's a professional advisor. He's been in the business since 1992. And this is his second time coming back. We actually had Dan on the show back in August of 22. Remember when the markets weren't doing so good? And right. We wanted somebody who actually knew what they were talking about to help us have those tough conversations with clients in a downturned market. And what were the opportunities? And by the way, everything that Dan said back then, all held true. So now our clients are all rich because they listened to Dan's sage advice in that show. Now, since then, you know, Dan has actually transitioned his business once again. He wanted to take a look at his career, and he said, "Where can I create some real value and really help this industry?" He's, you know, as I said, he's done it all, and I'll let him tell his story. But now we're very happy. He's now the vice president of corporate growth and development at IPC. He's actually helping all the young people who are coming in what we call our Pinnacle program, which is taking over the businesses of people as they retire and being the succession plan. And he's here to really help that next generation of advisors. So I think this is really, really exciting. So, you know, Dan's here to talk about his journey, how he became an advisor, how he thought about succession plan, and now how do you think about the future and young people be getting into this business? So, Dan, thanks so much for coming back to the show again.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Always some more sage wisdom we hope to get from you today. So, you know, let's start with, you know, tell us your story. How did you get here? You've had quite the journey as a financial advisor. You've done a lot of things. So, you know, maybe give everyone a little background.
Sure. I'll sum up 32 years in 3 minutes for you, Chris.
Perfect.
So starting out, yeah, I mean, getting into this business was an interesting sort of turn of events because coming out of university, I had met my wife, my wife to be in university, and
at that time, yeah.
And so, you know, at that time, I had no idea about what the investment management business was about at all. But her father was an investment advisor for many years. So through there, I got to know him. I got to know what the business was about a little bit, and he was gracious enough to hire me pretty much out of school, believe it or not. So
perfect.
Yep. And take me on. And he mentored me for years. So I started in 1992 with him, right, as an MFDA advisor. He mentored me for many years, which is a critical piece, by the way, for young advisors.
Yep.
So he mentored me for many years. Then in 2006, I got IROC license, transitioned my business through IPC. In 2007, just before the wonderful time that 2008 and 2009 were.
The wonderful recessions.
Yes. The wonderful recession, that's right. But, you know, I'll tell you what, Chris, I think those years were critical in developing, you know, my thought process around being a financial advisor.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see how crisis like this can actually mean good things moving forward if people kind of look at it that way. You know, right. So I think advisors are well, they can learn very well from these kinds of times as to how to become a really great advisor.
Right. They say that, isn't that right? Your mettle is tested, and learn. If it was all good times, we wouldn't really learn anything. We only learn things in bad times.
100%. So through getting through that was critical, and we did. And then really, I think the difference after that, when a difference made in my business was made in the business, is when I got introduced to the total client experience in 2009, roughly.
Right.
And our total client experience, program, if you will, is world class, and it launched my business forward. So through the years, and we'll get into that a little bit more because I think that's a very critical part. But through the years afterwards, our business really expanded greatly. We ended up with sort of a head office, if you will, here in Ottawa, and a couple of satellite offices. And then right up to 2019, when we worked diligently on our practice and business. 2019, I made the decision to sell and to move to the corporate world, sort of, so to speak, through our Pinnacle program, which we can get into a little later as well. And then from there, I've been with the Pinnacle program now for 5 years. Believe it or not, it's gone by times fast. Yeah, and now I'm taking on this new role, which is exciting. So that's kind of the timeline, and then where we are today.
Well, as I said, you have sort of I'm going to say the perfect career in the wealth management business. Started. Luckily, you had a great mentor helping you learn the business, because that's key. You can read all the books you want, but if you're not in it and having somebody like bring you through it, you've been through, now the process of also succession and selling your business and moving that. And now hopefully, well, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be helping a lot of other people go through that journey. And I'm glad that you mentioned sort of the TCE, because on the show, I talk a lot about not only our business, but different businesses. And why they're successful is because they focus on their client. They focus on the client experience. I'm not going to say the product is unimportant, but what people remember is how they feel about the interaction that they have with their advisors, not necessarily what they sold them or what their return was last year. Doesn't hurt, but as I said, it's that relationship that makes all the difference. And I think you're one of the best at developing those relationships.
It's one of the things about thinking back about my career on how it's transformed over those years. Really, the turning point was actually that it was a shift in thinking in the end, because if you're investment focused, if your value add is the investment that you're providing to the client, it's a slow spiral to zero in the end.
Right.
And really, it's that shift to being a true wealth manager, to becoming, providing an experience to a client that you can build trust, you can build relationships, you can provide that totality of what they require, whether from an estate planning, tax planning, retirement planning, risk management, all the good things, where the investment is simply a part of that overall plan. It can't help but build trust and relationships in your client interactions. And from there, every business that I've been around, and I've been around a number of them just with other advisors over the years, the ones who have moved from being investment centric to wealth management centric, if you want to put it that way, implementing our the total client experience in the way that they should ultimately to achieve this. Those businesses are the most profitable. Those businesses have the most satisfaction from an advisory standpoint, and the clients have the least angst around what happens from time to time when markets don't cooperate ultimately, because they're linked to a much broader spectrum of things that we're doing for them. So that is what launches, I believe, businesses and advisory practices into the next stratosphere, is that thought process around doing just that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think it's universal. Like, although we're in the wealth management business, ever since we started really talking about client experiences and linking that trust, and a much broader report card of how people would judge you. I now see it in other businesses. Like almost every business that I encounter personally, I have sort of like a checklist. Are they following the client total client experience? Do I feel good about the interaction? Do they follow up? Just of how they follow up sometimes, will make the make or break decision on whether I'm going to do business with them. So it's a great example. Now, since you've been in this entrepreneurial journey, If you had to look back now, and maybe you answered this question, but what do you wish you knew then that you now know?
Yeah, well, I think what we just discussed was the big one, but there are many things that you could look back and say,
So
I
many.
wish I do this a little differently or that a little differently. Certainly, you can't be everything to everyone.
Right. That's a good one.
That's a that is something that I think it's a little less. It's not as easy when you're first starting out as an advisor to kind of take that to heart, because
Right.
you're trying to build your business. But I think as you sort of progress through your business years, you really got to focus on the kinds of clients that you want to duplicate, the kinds of clients that that need your help and that you're aligned with to a degree that's going to really, I think, help you launch into the next level as well, because you're suited for it.
Right.
And I think that's a very, very important factor. I think if I did that a little earlier, I think it could have solved some problems.
You would have been a happier life. Yeah.
Yeah, happier life. But really, I think it really comes down to what we talked about before. It's your investment. The investment proposition is not your value add.
Right.
So just really focus on building relationships, building trust, but do it through that total comprehensive wealth management way.
Right. Process.
And that process is critical, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually, it was funny. And so I'm writing a book, and my last chapter, the chapter I was just working on, was not everybody's your client. And it's hard to sometimes get around or get people's heads around that, because especially when you start in this business, everybody is your client. Like if they can fog a mirror and they have access to a checkbook, they're probably your client. But
exactly.
your point, the ones that you have the best fit with, the ones that really appreciate your services, they want what you're giving them. It's a much better life to live than coming in and trying to provide and satisfy somebody who's really unsatisfiable, if that's a word. So I think that's a really important lesson for people to take off of this podcast.
Completely agree.
Now you've built this highly successful business, and I'll just tell our audience, you had to your point, you had 3 different locations. You were going from place to place. You had a great business. You had acquired a few businesses as well, so you were down that path. Right. And then you started to think about, well, what's the next stage for my business, and started to think about succession planning. You started to think about equity. So maybe take us through that process, because I know I've talked to a ton of advisors right now who are going through that exact same thing. Like that's where their head is I've built this great business. How am I going to get success, money out of it? Well, what about my kids? What about my future? Like all of those things. So you're the prime example of that. So maybe give us, sort of your journey through that process.
Sure. It's interesting because I think you're only ready when you're ready. And sometimes,
yeah,
when you're thinking about it, it just, one day it just happens in the end, really, when you now know that you are ready. And so that there's not it's not I think a template everybody could sort of follow. I'll be ready at this specific date. I think it's when your mind kind of comes around to the fact that, that you want to make a change in that aspect. So really for me, it became a point where we had grown our business, I think, robustly, and it was a well-performing business. But a lot of it with the 3 branches, a lot of it became where I was managing people. We had some advisors and some and some specialists that were with us, managing branches, managing the business aspect of it. Which took away a lot of time from what I really enjoyed and loved, which is sitting in front of clients. I mean, I began in this business for that very reason, and it morphed into something a little more in the end. And so it really kind of hit me over the last couple of years before we actually made our decision that this is what I really want.
Right.
And so by the time we made the decision to move to the Pinnacle group and sell our business, it was an easy decision. It allowed me to ultimately step back from the business process, focus on clients, know that the transition of my clients to our corporate advisors per se, a bunch of, many of my clients that have transitioned over, are well taken care of because they're world-class. Our Pinnacle group is world-class. So in fact, I'll tell you one thing. When I was in the process of saying, oh boy, I'm going to have to, transition my clients over to another advisor, but nobody can do it as well as I can.
Yep. I had the same view.
But I was wrong, and very wrong, because we have it's been a smooth transition. It's been the smoother than I could ever have hoped ultimately. And they're well served, and probably better than I could serve them in many aspects. So that with a different viewpoint ultimately. But we have, that was a critical factor, I think, when making that decision was, are my clients going to be looked after properly? Like, can I have confidence in moving my clients over to a different advisor?
Right.
And what really, gave me that appreciation that things will be okay is the fact that our advisors adhere to total client experience.
Right. Right. They have a process that you can be comfortable with.
Exactly. They are going to get exactly what I have given over all those years that I've grown to, grown those relationships with our clients. So that removed any kind of angst on that end.
Right.
And, the monetization of our business when we work so hard to grow it is a reward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a reward for working hard. It's a reward for growing your business over all those years. And so that's part of it, but it's sort of a 1A and 1B scenario where the satisfaction of knowing that you can gain capacity, you can gain some balance in your life, you can gain some other things that maybe you didn't have before by doing this transaction, and monetize the value of your business at the same time. That's a nice combination, given that the transition of clients to other advisors is well taken care of.
Right. You can be confident.
Yeah.
And I think your story is fairly, I'm going to say, typical in what all entrepreneurs want for their business, right? And number one is, are my clients going to be looked after in a manner that I would feel comfortable with? Because, and I know we've talked about this, even when I sold my practice, my business, when I was an advisor, number one thing is, these are my friends. These are people that I've grown up with. They've been with me for years. They trust me. I want to be sure that they're going to be looked after in a manner that I would look after them. Number one. Two, am I going to get good equity value? Blood, sweat, and tears you and Lorraine put into this business to build it up to that point. And I know what you guys had to go through. And to your point, managing people, managing different offices, staff, it can be tiring, and get back to what you love. And there's a good, story I always tell. I read about Steve Jobs, so I talk quite a bit about. He said he's got the 20-day rule. If you look at yourself in the mirror for 20 days in a row and you don't love what you do, it's time to make a change and get back to the things you do love. So hopefully allowed you to do the things you like, which is just hang out with people and give them good advice, as opposed to all this mess that comes to it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the core of what we do in the end.
You might be interested in looking at wealth management as a career option. Yeah, personally, I love the wealth management business. In fact, I was a financial advisor for about 15 years, loved being an advisor. And so, happy to talk to anyone who's looking at wealth management as a career. Love to have a virtual coffee with you. Just go to the show notes, click on the link, and we'll set something up and talk about your future career in wealth management. This is great. Now you're going to be helping the next generation. And this is really important in our industry is, we have an aging demographic in the wealth management business. And that's been going on for years, but now is real time. Like now it's happening. Where what's the stats? Something like 50% of the assets on the independent side are held by advisors over the age of 60. It's amazing. So you don't have that group. So now this is part of what your role is. You've done it. You've built a great business. You've done a succession plan. So, how do you see that next generation coming in, and what can they learn that the old generation, I'm going to say the going out generation, should have learned, but now they have the opportunity to learn from all of those things and move forward?
Yeah. Well, the next generation, if that's the way we want to label it, is, I think, I've got a tremendous opportunity. And I think it's a bit of a fallacy out there that we're challenged by these techno advisors, and
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of opportunity for investment eccentric or those who are focusing on investments only maybe can have a bit of a challenge by those techno
Right.
companies. But I'll tell you what, if I think there's an opportunity for young advisors right now, or less experienced advisors, maybe a better opportunity than we've ever had, Chris, when we were starting out. And that is providing that kind of experience, that total wealth management. I know I keep going back to that, but
Right.
that total wealth management process. If people are people, we still want to feel like we're being served and we are being well taken care of, and we want to have trust in who we're dealing with.
Right.
We want to build relationships. We're relational beings in the end. Young advisors, I think, have this tremendous opportunity because not only are they techno savvy,
Yep,
and they've got all the tools to help navigate through some time wasters that we would have not had in the past. They've got a lot of information out there that they can grasp. So all of the investment stuff is there to pick anytime you want. It's not a real challenge anymore. But now they can focus. They can focus on providing these wonderful experiences for their clients. And I think they'll have a much better opportunity to maintain long-term, long-standing relationships than maybe we ever had.
yeah,
That by just doing that, because people are starved for it, I think. The clients need it. And so their opportunity set is there, but they're also, I think they're ready to work. And I think when they have the right opportunity that's put in front of them, I think people in the next generation are really ready to get to it. And I'm excited to, in my role now, to work with these people, like these kinds of advisors who are already smarter than I ever was. And now to be able to just glean, hopefully they can glean some information from me and some from our team that will help them get to the next level in their own careers. We want to move people up the ladder in their careers, at the same time providing, major satisfaction in that journey.
right.
They're out for their own love of what they're doing, and making the client whole, making the client have what they deserve. And that is a real roadmap to reaching their goals and objectives. So that's the thought process around what we want to do with our advisors. They're already so much of what we're talking about, they're already there.
Right.
But I've been a coach for a lot of years through sporting events,
Right.
sports and other things. And this is just another way for me to be able to, this is why I really wanted to do this role, was the coaching and mentoring of people, younger people, or those who are, earlier on in their career streams, to get to a point where they are world-class in their processes and they're world-class in what they deliver to clients. That is exciting. And that's what my role is. And that's what our role of our team is.
Yeah. No, I think it's very exciting. And I think you make a really good point around the bringing together the personal touch of advice with technology. Whereas, you and I, when we were coming up, we had, it was face to face. It was a lot of coffees. It was a lot of driving. It was a lot of movement. Now just with what we're doing right now, whether it's Teams or Zoom, with DocuSign, like the process of giving advice and the access is so much greater than it ever has. Like, literally, I could talk to you right now. I could hang up and I could be talking to someone in Vancouver, and I could hang up and then talk to somebody in Halifax, all within an afternoon.
To your point, there's no boundaries.
Give good advice. Yeah, there's no geographic limitations that there once was.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you could have clients in Toronto, and you could have clients in Halifax, and you have clients in Vancouver, and serve them very well through what we can do today versus when we were coming up through the ranks.
Put a lot of miles on that car.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, if I was somebody listening to this podcast and I'm thinking about getting into the wealth business, and I get a lot of calls from people who ask that. They think, I've heard your podcast. I think it's a great, it sounds like a great career if I'm getting into the wealth business. Why is Pinnacle a great opportunity? Like now, as somebody who's going to be heading up that entire thing, what do you see? What would you tell a young person of all the advantages of this as a career?
Our group is really world class. Well, it's a tough slog when you start as an independent investment advisor right from the beginning. You have to build a business that takes time. Number one, takes resources. Number two,
Right.
even if you're looking to build your business by acquiring other assets, it takes resources, and it's not always readily available to you at the time. I think our Pinnacle group, outside of being already a world-class process that's in place and continuing to grow and develop in that way, we have a group there that can really move in an advisor's career. Advisor who comes to us, they can move their career along in a progressive way, right, where they feel satisfied in what they're doing. They're providing great experience to the clients. They're building their careers with us right from the start. They have a group of clients they can work with right from the beginning.
Day one. Yeah.
Day one. Not only that, but they do have great support. So they're going to learn the business the right way. They're going to learn how to become a world-class advisor. So the mentoring, the coaching, all of that stuff that is so critical. Like I talked about at the beginning, when I was very lucky to have a mentor in my life.
Right.
But
right.
without that, it's a tough slog. And I think our group in our Pinnacle group provides that as well. So we're going to be the coaching and the mentoring. Our team will help you, or help any advisor who wants to come to us become world class.
Yeah. Well, what you and the team continue to develop is sort of that, I'm going to call it almost wealth management in a box, right? You can come, you can start as a career, you know how to start, you have the support system around them, you have a career path to follow, and you have clients who are there that you can help from day one. You don't have to really build up that business. It's all about service-minded type people, I would imagine.
Well, it 100% is, and it really allows you to focus in on the clients. So if your love is to work with clients, that's what your focus is with our group. It's not running the business side. We'll take care of that for you, but we're going to allow you to continue to build relationships over your career. And if you're a people person like our advisors have to be, that has to sound pretty good, because we are, you're able to develop such long-standing great relationships with people. And there's nothing more, I think, rewarding than watching a client move through their financial life and achieve the goals that you've helped them set over time. And our group is committed, our Pinnacle group is committed to, making that happen for our clients. And our advisors are obviously the critical piece.
Yeah. Well, as I said, as somebody who's both of us have spent our careers in this business, I don't know a better business. We get paid outrageously to give people good advice, create value in their lives. And, I'd probably be talking to them anyhow. They're good people who really want more. So as I said, it's a great way to spend a day.
100%. Yeah.
So now, if you remember from the last time, I have my rapid fire questions.
Great.
Ask you 3 questions. And, first thing that pops into your head. And as I said, I think I know the answers to some of these, but first thing I always ask, what are you passionate about? What are you really passionate about?
What am I really passionate about? I am passionate about, at this, really top of mind is coaching and mentoring.
Making people better.
That resonates with me well. I mean, if I have a nugget or two that I could pass off to people to help them better their careers or whatever it could be, that is a very rewarding kind of experience for me. So it's very, I guess it's selfish in a lot of ways, but it's super rewarding. And yeah, I'm very passionate about that. It's something.
No, you can tell. As I said, I almost knew the answer to that one before. And the other question I ask is, what is your most memorable client experience? What's that one that you remember that you sort of tell as a story of this has been the best client interaction I've ever had?
Oh boy, I've had so many great client interactions.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint.
It's hard to pinpoint one. And I think you gave me this question last time as well.
I'm going to see that's what I did. I went back. So I'm going to see if it was the same one or a new one. Please, it could be a new one too.
You know what? I think we'll do a new one. So I had a client who was injured when they weren't in the city anymore. Actually, they weren't in the country anymore. They were in Florida, and they had a hard time. If I remember back, what's going on here, they had a very difficult time organizing coming back to Canada.
Ooh.
Because this person was quite injured. So
Right.
I had some contacts at the Ottawa hospital. I set up helped set up that whole process of them returning to Canada.
Wow.
And I was involved with that. And this contact at one of the General Hospital in Ottawa was there and had her ready to come in when she arrived back in Canada. And that whole thing to me was super rewarding because it was something that was a little bit outside the box.
Right. And probably something they will never forget.
I hope so. Not from any selfish standpoint, but just from a standpoint of, when I coach and mentor now, I think those are some of the little things that, that really make a difference in clients' lives. And it's not like I flew out there and picked her up or anything. I just made all the arrangements that were within my power to make. But that was something that I was proud of, for sure.
I love it. Very memorable. Yeah. And the last one is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. Well, I think the best piece of advice I've ever received is life is like water off a duck's back. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. That is a great piece of advice, and I wish people would learn more about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Or at least follow it more religiously. Let's say that
that takes some time, a little bit of experience, maybe, and time in life to learn that properly.
I was going to say that takes age and wisdom. I think those are the teachings that come together. Is when you water ducks back. Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Maybe only one of the few things that is good about aging. Okay?
Exactly. You collect all this wisdom, and then you try to tell other people about it. But sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't.
That's right. Yeah.
No, this has been great, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the show. My rant is, if we could get anything out of this, the wealth management business is a great career. It's a great place for entrepreneurs. It's a great place to build a career. It's a great industry because you're actually helping and creating value in other people's lives. And let's also face it, we get paid fairly well for what we do. So, and you've sort of embodied that whole process through the wealth management, from, starting out, having a mentor, building a highly successful business, going through a succession plan, capitalizing on this business, and now being dedicated to helping others in that business. Like, you're sort of the embodiment of what, the wealth management business is for people. Dan Nolan of IPC, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Now, if anyone's interested in, looking at the wealth management business as a career, be happy to have a virtual coffee. Just go to the show notes, click on the link there, and we can set something up, and I'd be happy to chat. Thanks for joining me on Turning the Page. What did you learn from today's episode? If you follow me on LinkedIn, please drop me a comment there. I'd love to chat with you about it over a virtual coffee. Send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can do so at our website. The link's in the show notes. I'm Chris Reynolds, and until next time.